What's up, Intertubers? My name is Alex. I'm a master certified automotive technician, and in my 20-year career, I've put together a lot of really cool tips and tricks, stuff that only us insiders know, and I like to share those with you. So I hope you'd like this first video, and I hope you guys check back regularly for new content. If you have any requests, please post them below. Please like, share, and comment, and help get this channel going. All right? Stay tuned.
Check this.
First project I chose for you guys was this awesome little genset from Cummings Onan. This is their 5HGJAD series gensets, and they're available in 5 and 7 kilowatt versions. They are popular in many motorhomes and RVs, as well as some luxury boats and yachts. And where I see them most, and where you might see them the most, is in construction and aerial equipment. I get asked a lot of questions about these, so I thought this would be a great first video. Just adjust this here so you get a little bit of a better angle. Alright, I apologize if it's a little shaky. I got you guys strapped to my chest harness. Shaky. Okay, so the first thing I like to do when I'm rebuilding these generators is first off get some of these absorbent mats underneath it, especially this one. As you can see, it's really cruddy. It's been leaking probably gasoline and definitely some oil for a long period of time. So some mats underneath help clean up the oil, make sure it doesn't stain your bench, make sure you don't make a big mess of things. And then from there we're going to go ahead and move to actually draining the oil. And just get the port here away from the bench so I can open this up. And sometimes you need aid of some pliers. Pop that bad boy loose and let the oil go. Open up the oil cap. This has not been open for a while. You can see the condition of that oil is not that great. Doesn't even look like there's that much oil left in there. Appears that a lot of it leaked out. See if I can get you some light in here. Get a good look in there. All that oil leaked out, and it's just generally cruddy. I'll take care of that. But while the oil is draining, I'm going to come here and move over to my 10mm bit and start disassembling the electronics over here. This one's already loose, and I don't know if you can see that hole. That bad boy is stripped out. It's just common occurrence on these. It's just cast aluminum. Really was never meant to take any type of beating from an impact gun or anything like that. This little gun is pretty much the most that you can use on it, and that I only like to use in reverse. But seeing as how these are all pretty messed up already, I'm going to move over to a 1/4 inch ratchet and an extension and just go by hand. And that one's gone. Yeah, the threads are just gone on this one too. And this one is tight. So this one could probably be salvaged. The other two I'm going to have to go ahead and actually re-thread and repair those threads, and I'll show you how I do that. But yeah, that just came right out. The last two just pulled right out. So unclip in here, pull this module out, put that to the side over there. Now we got the rest of the wiring in here. You can see more oil. Oil has just penetrated everything on this. Just this guy. That one's tight, so that's good. And then the quadrative grounds, those are tight. All right, so those are good. So we have 1, 2, and 3 bolt holes that are going to need to be redone. Alright, the oil is still draining. While that's draining, go ahead and pull the breather tube off here. This is obviously a source of one of the leaks. This thing is old and cracking up there, so it goes in the garbage. Definitely it was leaking. And I'm going to go ahead and pull the spark plugs now, the wires, and the valve covers, so I can change the valve cover gaskets. Alright, both sides. And then we will pull this breather plate here. This is a source of an oil leak a lot of times. It has dual gaskets separated by a plate that is actually like a PCV. And this bad boy doesn't want to come off. Give it a little aggressive persuasion. There you go. And as you can see, that was obviously a source of some of our oil leak in there. As you can see, it was already leaking past the gasket. That's not just from now. And these gaskets were rather worn out. So we have them in stock. We'll just change these out when we go ahead and start the tune-up process. Yeah, that's gone. Okay, valve covers normally just pull right off. Looks like somebody had tried repairing that with some type of sealer at one point. So go ahead and lay that out. And I'm laying these out just so that I know which side they go on. Although this side has the screw hole for the air cleaner, so it's not hard to remember where they go. Alright, you got a little oil leak in there, that's fine. Go ahead and pull these spark plug wires off. Spark plug socket. And I do use the impact and air tools for a lot of things, but there are certain things that I just cannot bring myself to. And one of those is spark plugs. That was pretty bad. Pretty bad. Oh, I lost my boot. All right. Shove that back in there. Move to the next side. Sorry if I seem a little robotic. I'm trying to keep the camera as steady as possible so that you can see what I'm doing, although pulling out spark plugs. If you don't know that, you really probably shouldn't be doing this type of work. Alright, there we go. And again, that one's seen better days. Keep it on the side for now anyway. Okay, keep your tools neat, keep everything neat. You'll be okay. Alright, one thing I did not grab is some rags, but I got one here. Just get all this oil out of there. And then I'm going to leave these valve covers off because we're going to check the valve lash once we turn this behemoth over and start pulling apart the bottom. So I will leave those because we need to turn the engine around, which is also why I pulled the spark plugs now. Alright, this thing is pretty well drained. I'm going to close up the oil drain now. The reason I drain it before I flip it over is just so that no oil leaks down into the cylinders. If you do and then you start it, you get a puff of white smoke. Sometimes it doesn't want to start right away, and you could run the risk of fouling out your spark plugs, brand new spark plugs. You don't want to do that. All right, so flip her over. And go ahead and pull this cover off. We're already missing one screw there, most likely because it's stripped out. And another one up there. Again, most likely just stripped out. This cover, this bottom plate is just a piece of cast aluminum, or aluminium, as they say in the UK. Get this guy off. Yeah. That bad boy's cruddy. We're gonna clean that up. Nicey nice. Make it like new. And if we look up here, we can see this has no heat shield on it. There's normally a shield that goes on it. We do have the heat shield, so we'll be putting one of those on. These magnetos are covered in oil, so they most likely were not firing properly. And the belt, we got a little bit of milkshake in here, which means there was some water getting in here. It's not a water-cooled unit, so there's no antifreeze. But somehow the weather stripping is not working and water was penetrating this unit. Stuff like this I like to take and leave the bolts in place, just so that I know these three go for this. Put this to the side. Okay, now we can see this belt is all oil soaked and penetrated. The tensioner is new, but it's compromised due to all the oil, and we don't know. Yeah, we got water in here. See, I don't know if you guys can see it, but there's a decent amount of water in the bottom. Something wasn't sealing right in this. We'll try to take a look at that when we get the unit back in the truck, see where that water was coming from. But in the meantime, pull those magnetos off, move them to the side. Let them just hang to the side so that we can come in there with that big boy and get this bolt off. Alright. What I like to do is just take it and put it 1 or 2 threads in while I pop it off, just so that it doesn't go flying or snap back and hit me in the face. I don't know how many people I've seen do steering wheels like that. And next thing you know, they're missing a tooth or have to go get dental work. Alright. This we're just gonna give it a little pry, a couple different places. Just work it out slowly. You are hitting on the teeth, so don't go too crazy with that. Just give it a little pry. Just work it. It'll come out. It'll come out. And what's nice is, since you already took the plugs out, it's nice and easy to maneuver. And if you got a good spot where you pry, you can just keep moving and prying. And there she goes. She popped. Pull this out. There we go. And now that came out. Somebody did a tune-up on this generator recently. These are all new. That nut should have been replaced when it was done. And you can see that it was hitting into the cover here, and 2 screws were replaced. We have these new screws. We're going to replace that, and we're also going to pull that cover off and see what's going on and replace that seal. Put this over to the side. Bolt. Another reason the pig mats are good is because you can lay things out on them and you don't lose them on the bench, which is nice. All right. 15. 13. All right. that'll do it for teardown. It really is that simple. I can pull these spark plug wires and magnetos through. I'll do that now. This really is a simple unit to work on. Everything is right there, right out front. The hardest part of these jobs is pretty much getting the unit out of the vehicle and back in, especially if you're working on something like an AT235P from Altec, where they put the unit way down on the floor instead of up on a pedestal somewhere where you can get to it easy, especially if that unit also has a tow rope setup, which kind of gets in your way. So I'm going to pull these out, set these aside. These will get cleaned up as well. And we're going to pull the spark plug wires out of any of the mounting clips. Like this one over there. I don't know if you can see it that well. I'll show you when I put them back in. And then pull these bad boys through. And there you go. Put those to the side. We will not be reusing them with all the oil that was soaked on them. So that's it for right now. I'm going to go ahead and get this cleaned up. Yeah, I'm going to go ahead and clean this up, get all the oil off it, and then we will be back with the inspection procedure. All right, see you soon. Alright, and we're back, and we have the generator all cleaned up. For legal reasons, I can't show you the methods in which I use to clean the unit. Alright, so I'm going to continue on with our teardown now. The only reason I saved these last two pieces for after cleanup is because I'm going to be opening parts of the engine that are sensitive to dirt. So I don't want any of the dirt getting in there before I've had a chance to clean it. I've already gone ahead and loosened the oil pump plate. So I'm just going to loosen those out. Sometimes you have a little problem getting these off, especially if they're been mangled by a bad coupling. You might have to use a little hammer and chisel and get in there and knock them around. These top two are already replaced by 10 millimeters, so they're nice and easy to just zip out. And I will be replacing all these screws with new hardware from Cummings. There you go. The oil pump cover seems to be in decent shape. No nicks or marring. Looks good. Spring seems to be in good condition, and the ball is present. This O-ring seems to be rather flat. It was probably a source of one of our leaks, so I'm going to wind up going ahead and changing that, mainly because I opened up the unit. Alright, this is pretty simple. Might give you a little problem, but just get a nice pick underneath one side of it and pull it right out. Discard this. Goes in the garbage. Clean that area up. And we can pull out this screen here. Oh, look at that. Got some silicone debris. Obviously somebody tried to make their own gasket at some point with some gray silicone. And this is why we go very light on silicone when we're doing anything that will be going into the oil system or has the possibility of putting debris into the oil system. Thankfully, this screen is here to catch anything, any big pieces like that. And that's why I always check that. All right, oil pump seems to be in good condition. I'm just going to slide the screen back into place. Just here a little bit. You're a little too high. All right. So now that that's out of the way, I'm going to take the new O-ring, make sure it's clean. If you picked up anything from being in your hands, let's give it a little quick look. Set this into place. If it's giving you a problem staying into place, a little dab of grease in one or two corners is more than enough to hold it in. I wouldn't use any type of weather strip adhesive or anything like that, not on an O-ring. I know people use that sometimes. I use it myself on gaskets sometimes to hold them in place, but I would not use it on an O-ring. O-ring needs to be able to expand and contract. It can't do that if it has adhesive on it. All right. We have 4 screws for the new pump, for the pump cover, 4 brand new screws. And again, I will, well, not again, I haven't said this, but I will link all the part numbers in this video. I'll either put them up on the screen in post, or I will put them in a link, a description link, so that everybody can get these parts and everything that I've used. This cover's got a little gunk in it still, so I'm just going to go through these fins, clean them out. This engine was very heavily oil saturated from the breather cap leaking. There we go. That looks good. Nice and clean. All right, so the cover's set to go back on. It's nice and simple. You have a longer portion here at the bottom, shorter one at the top. Longer portion goes at the bottom so that it would clear the coupling. You can see a little bit of marring here from where the old nut here was hitting that. It's not enough to compromise its integrity, so we're just going to reuse it. You can get these covers though. It's interesting, they're actually supplied by Cummings, but they're made by Subaru. I'm assuming Subaru Motorsports, but don't quote me on that. Let's just snug up one of these screws so that I can go ahead and get the other ones. So these want to be tightened to 5 foot-pounds. But unfortunately, I don't have a bit. Oh, what am I talking about? I can make something real quick. I'm going to take 1/4 inch. Phillips head 3. And an inch-pound torque wrench. So 5 inch-pounds, 5 foot-pounds rather, 60 inch-pounds. It's 50, 55, 60. Tighten her up. And there you go. Just make sure they're all snug so I don't waste too much time ratcheting away on the torque wrench. Torque wrenches don't like to be used as ratchets. They're a precision tool, so the least amount of work you can do with them, the better. This one's going to need an extension. For those of you wondering, an extension does not affect torque applied unless there is like a crowfoot or other adapter on the extension. But when the pivot point is in a straight line. There is no multiplication or reduction of torque. If you want to debate me on that, you can find an article. I've read quite a few. There we go. And I'm just going in a simple roundabout pattern. There's no set tightening sequence here. There we go. Just going to double check, make sure that none loosened up as the others got tighter. Great. So now, there we go. So a little live action problem solving. It's a mechanic's favorite word, improvisation. All right. Next, we're going to change this seal. Sorry guys, that last scene didn't get caught, but pretty much to remove these, you just knock the top in with the flathead, grab the bottom and pull out. This seal, if you can see in there, but there was a good amount of oil in here, which means that this seal was leaking as well. And I don't know if you can get a good look at that. If you can see that, I don't know if this will focus, but there is some damage on the smooth surface of this crankshaft where it actually runs on the seal. That's why the seal got damaged. So I'm going to get a little bit of very, very light sandpaper, maybe like a 2000 grit, 1200 grit, and I'm actually going to knock that rough stuff down so that when we put our new seal in, here's our new seal, so that when we put our new seal in, we don't damage this edge again. Okay? All right, and we're back. Got myself a piece of 1200 grit wet dry sandpaper here. I'm going to take a little bit of silicone lube and just spray this bad boy up. This is wet dry sandpaper, and I just don't want to be running around sanding this crankshaft with a dry piece of paper, sandpaper. I'm just going to get this in there and lightly work it. That's already starting to feel good. This is working wonders. It's almost gone already. Perfect. For anybody worrying about the seal's ability to do its job after I sand this down, 1200 grit is so fine that really all I'm doing is just knocking down the rough edges. I'm not actually going to take enough material away for there to be an issue with oil sealage. Like that, I just made up my own word, oil sealage. Yep, you can see somebody, I don't know if you guys can see that really well, but somebody in there had really nicked that up really badly at one point. So I'm going to give that a little extra attention just to kind of take those nicks down. And these are the little things you do when you're doing a job like this that make the difference between a successful repair and a job that needs to be redone in 6 to 8 months. Because this okay, the seal go in the garbage, all in one. And now we can go ahead and lube up the new seal, lube up the hole. Get her into place. All right. We got ourselves a big socket. And we're back with a 1 5/8 inch socket. And if you see, fits really nice on there. And it's wide enough that it'll go over the shaft for the crankshaft. So again, I'm going to get this a little bit more lubed. Set this bad boy in place. And give it a few taps. It's in place. Okay, now that the seal's back in place, wipe off any excess oil, because like we said, the silicone oil, they're going to deteriorate the life of the belt, right? So that's where we are right now. Next, we're going to put the flywheel together. Here we have the flywheel. Get a little better light in here for you. There's our flywheel. Our landings for the magnetos, and our trigger and our air gap. Okay, I need 1 or 2 new nuts to install the coupling, and I'll be right back. Okay, back again. So here's our flywheel again. Cleaned a little more dirt out of there. And I just picked up the new nut to replace the one that was considerably damaged when the coupling failed. That's fatigue too much. Bye-bye.
garbage. So, to assemble the flywheel, we take our new coupling. This bolt pattern is the same on both sides, so you don't have to worry about which side goes where. There's no difference in spacing or anything. We're going to place that down in there. Take our crank pulley, place that down on top. And when you are placing this crank pulley on top, what you want to take a look at is this wearable ring inside. Make sure that it fits snug on there. Any excess vibration in this unit will put unneeded stress on the crankshaft and on the connecting rods and rod bearings and things like that. We don't want that. So just make sure that this is nice and snug when you slide it over. I'm going to take 4 of these nuts. I'm just going to lightly put these down. Again, torque wrenches are not ratchets, so we don't want to do too much work with a torque wrench. Our torque setting here is the same, 5 foot-pounds, so that is 60 inch-pounds. We're just going to torque these bolts down. The only reason I put the coupling in the flywheel when I do this is just so that it's easier to hold. Once more into the gray, around all the bolts. Make sure none of them loosened up and another one got tighter. Normally parts like this, that doesn't happen to, but it's just a good practice to get into for when you're doing other things like gaskets and such. 4 more bolts on the front side, and our torque setting here is the same. And again, torque wrenches don't like work. Now, for those of you who are used to using really big torque wrenches and stuff, these torque wrenches do not click like your typical torque wrench. You notice you'll just have a little bit of play on the end there. They are a click type torque wrench, but they do not make that loud, audible click that we're so used to hearing. So just make sure that you're aware of that. Okay. Flywheel's good. We can set that aside for now. Turn our attention to the rest of the drive system here. A little dirt still. You're never going to get it completely clean unless you power wash it, which I don't have access to. I'm going to replace the belt and tensioner next. Have to mount the belt first because once we mount this tensioner, there's no way to get the belt in or out. So this has to go first. So, new copper washer in the front. Replace the spring in the back. This portion on the back side here corresponds to the hole in the block, and that's what holds it on its pivot point. And this nub right here fits into the slot inside the tensioner. So that'll slide in. our original nut and washer go on top there. And we make sure that we slide the back of the spring into that hole. Push this into position. And install this just finger tight for now. And then we're going to torque it. I don't like using my gun too much on these because, like I said, it is really poor cast aluminum, this plate, and it will strip out. I will, however, just give them a little zip with that. So that again, we don't use the torque wrench as a ratchet. This is obviously coming out of position. All right, I'm going to go with the ratchet on this because I don't like the way that's tightening up. This is the name of the game. Got to make sure that, yep, don't like it at all. So this moved a little bit. There we go. Now we're back in position. See, that's still loose. And I'm going to go tight with the torque wrench. Belt tensioner center bolt is 20 foot-pounds. So I'm going to have to grab my foot-pound torque wrench. Back again. Here's my 3/8 torque wrench. I misspoke before. I said I'm going to go get a foot-pound torque wrench. That was a misnomer. I meant I was going to go get a 3-inch drive torque wrench, which has a higher torque value. I'm going to torque this bad boy down to 20 foot-pounds. There we go. Again, these do not give the same audible click that we're used to. There we go. That one is a little louder, but still not as loud as if we were using a 1/2-inch torque wrench and we heard that loud click that every one of us is so used to. Okay. Now, on to the fun part. We have to move this tensioner up so that we can get this belt around the pulley. So what you could do is sit here with a ratchet and hold it and try to finagle it on. I've seen some people do it before and try to finagle this all. The way I do it is pretty simple. I think if you follow this method, you'll have a lot of success and you actually won't struggle too much. That's the word I was looking for, struggle. I was searching for the word struggle, struggling to find the word struggle. So here we have just a 1/2-inch flex head ratchet, which corresponds with the 1/2-inch hole. And I'm going to take a few cable ties, put these together, feed them, get you looking, through this hole, back down through this one. And now when I get this here, just keep going until it lands just about there. Okay. Then I can bring this back, put my cable ties together, and just holding tight. Now this belt is out of my way and I am hands-free. Make sure that stays in there good. I'm hands-free now, so I have both hands free to make sure that this keyway lines up on the bottom and that the pulley here stays on the belt, or the belt stays on the pulley rather. All right. Okay. So, going on up. See, messed up here. Didn't go all the way under the belt. There we go. There we go. Slide right in. Perfect. Oh, we got a little guy trying to get away there. Just simply slide him under. Here we go. Slides right into place. Gonna throw our center bolt in there. And this guy gets torqued to 60 foot-pounds. I'm gonna get him snug again because torque wrench is not a ratchet. Now I can hold the ratchet and cut the tie. And now my belt is tensioned properly and I didn't fight and fuss with the belt. So our bottom half of the generator is almost fully complete. All right, so now that we have the 1/2 inch torque wrench, I'm going to set this to our 60 pound-foot setting. Three-quarter inch, 19 millimeter 3/4. And I'm going to need something to make sure that this engine does not turn. So I'm going to get this, wedge this in the bottom here. Because this engine still moves very freely. I want to find a place that will hold but is not going to be susceptible to breakage. Okay. And hold right here. Can hold the flywheel. Right by the starter. And that's why we hold it. It slipped. Slipped again. It's nice to have two people sometimes. Real live, in action thought process. And there we go. This one does have a nice, loud, audible signal. All right, so you guys witnessed a little problem-solving event live. Okay. Glad you could be here for that. Not really, but okay. Now we're going to mount the fan for the stator. This actually pulls some air in and up through to cool down the stator windings while the generator is producing current. And these are, hold on 1 second. They might not have a torque spec for these. They do. It's 8 foot-pounds, so 96 inch-pounds. Let's get these bad boys lined up. And get them short up. Perfect. 96 inch-pounds. 80. 95. 96 inch-pounds. Get something in there to lock that bad boy up too. Just again, we're twisting. Again, we're twisting. These won't need as much force to stop from turning. There we go. A little bit of a louder click. I don't know if you guys heard that, but there was a louder click. Righty. We are good. This is nice, spinning freely. I don't want to spin it too much though, because I don't have oil in it. So we drained it all out. Okay. Now, magneto mounting time. No, this is not the X-Men magneto. That's these guys here. All right, direction of rotation is counterclockwise, and you can basically tell that because if you try to put this magneto in upside down, this part of the coil spark plug wire hits this assembly here, and you could put it in this way, but it would hit here. So these only go one way, unless you really fudge things up. We're going to take our 8mm screws. We're just going to get these started. And I'm just going to snug them up. Again, these are going to get torqued, so I'm just getting snugged. I want these to be able to move still. Want them to be able to move. Now the longer spark plug lead is going to go on the top, goes up through here, and then over to this side. The shorter coil, or the coil ending in O2, this one right here is O1. The coil O2 is going to go on the bottom, has the shorter spark plug wire, and it goes right around the back to the spark plug there. Again, the same process here. We And if that's going to mess us up a little bit, so we're just going to move that out of the way. Go ahead and start those 2 screws and zip them up. Now we need a feeler gauge. We're going to use a 12 thousandths feeler gauge. All right. Process is pretty simple. Spin this guy around so that the 2 landings are on top of the magnetos. Then we're going to take our 12 thousandths feeler gauge, put it between the center of the coil and the landing, and adjust for a very, very slight drag. When that is done, we're simply going to torque these to 5 foot-pounds, which again is 60 inch-pounds. This bit will get a little tight. All right, drop you back to 60. 50, 55, 60. Okay, so this gets a little bit tricky, adjusting for the drag while trying to torque it down and such. So what I like to do is just get it to where I like it, hold it, see how much we have to use this tool. I don't like doing that. But on these, we really don't have a choice because you need them to be able to move while you're adjusting them. And then I'm just going to double check my gap. And I want this to go down the slightest bit. And there are very few good reasons to use a torque wrench to loosen a bolt. One is if you don't know the torque of a bolt, you can see at what torque it breaks free. But I just want to unsnug these a drop just so I can move them. I have not enough drag on this. I don't like it. And this is a finesse game here, but if you have too big of a gap, you're going to get alternating codes 37, 47, and your generator's going to shut off, and you don't want that. All right, I like that right there. So that's good. Now I'm going to snug these up. Okay. All right, I went ahead and snugged everything up off camera. You guys didn't need to be here for that, but they are properly adjusted now. They have good air gaps, and before I go ahead and run the wires through and close this portion of the generator up, I just want to go ahead and give it one spin around. There you go. And just make sure that nothing is hitting and there's no noises. Which I got a little bit of a noise here. It's good. There's just something on there. Okay. So we're good. We can run the wires, the spark plugs, and the boots through the hole. And the magneto kill wire can come back down and be connected to the terminal on the back of the wire. Okay. Same thing for the bottom one. Spark plug could be fed through. And the magneto kill wire installed. Now for these, little silicone, very lightly on the edges. Run the wires through them. You really can't see here, but I'll do it in the light for you. Run the wire through. Run the kill wire through. And we're going to push them back through the hole. Just take your time with it and kind of start at one corner and move it around. And they will pop through. Same thing with the top. Okay. There we go. Spark plug wire through. Magneto kill wire through. And push it down and in. There you go. Now, before I put the cover on, there were a few screws missing when we took this cover off. So I'm just gonna go ahead by hand, put these in, make sure that everything is nice and tight, that there's no screw holes that seem damaged in any way. I do keep these shoulder bolts in stock, so if I need to, I can replace them. So it doesn't look like any of these were damaged. It just looks like the technician before me, if I can call him a technician, I don't know, did not put them back. I hope it wasn't me who did this one last. Oops, maybe I should have checked that first. Oh well. All right, no, they all seem good. They all seem like tight holes. Disregard that last statement. They all appear to have good threads. So we're done here on the bottom of the unit, except for, I almost forgot, the heat shield. We're gonna have to replace that. All right, well, I was looking for the heat shield for the exhaust pipe, but unfortunately I don't have one in stock. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and put this generator back together, and when I get it in, I can just zip off the bottom cover and install it. But I do not want to put this generator into a unit until I get the exhaust manifold heat shield. I just don't want all the extra heat so close to these magnetos. At least the shield kind of directs it up through these two portions and out. Okay, so we can put the cover on, and I grabbed a couple of extra bolts here that were missing from our stock. So these are pretty much self-explanatory. As you took them off, you can lay them out in a pattern if you want, but you'll be able to tell which holes are the short shoulder and which ones are the longer version, pretty much just by looking at them. These here in the body, the bottom here are the longer ones. Got another longer one out over here, and one up here. Let me get a little started. And then the last shorter ones, one down there, one up in the corner here, and lastly, in the corner over here. These are not that crazy. I'm just going to zip them on with my gun, especially since I'm going to be taking them off again. But I do want to give this something to rest on. That must have been a new one. I do want to give this something to rest on when I flip it over. I don't want it resting on this wheel or on the flywheel and coupling. We're going to go ahead and flip this unit over now and get the top assembled. Pivot this down. Alrighty. Okay. So, around the back here, spark plug wire 1, and spark plug wire 2. Spark plug wire 2 comes back around the starter here, down in here, sits in this clip. Let me get a better angle for you. Sits in this clip here, and then we'll connect to spark plug there. And then the other one will come down, follow under here, in the back, underneath the throttle body, and come up alongside here. Now, this is the source of that silicone. Obviously somebody, I don't know if it was when they put this engine together or not, but somebody put some gray silicone on here, and that is the source of that silicone from earlier down inside. Now, I already went ahead and cleaned up the covers and the breather plate for the generator. Now that I have it flipped back over, I'm gonna go and clean these out, and you guys really don't need to be around for that. So I'll be back in a second. Here we go again. So, got our breather plate and gaskets assembled, and we have our cover, and if you notice, there is a dimple and a dimple. Those two go on top together. Fits together like a nice little package. You notice there's that cutout that we mentioned before, and there's a corresponding slot in the block. So it's nice and easy to figure out which way this whole assembly goes in if you didn't take note when you took it out. And some 10mm screws. And I believe this is the same torque setting as before, but I'm just going to double check that before I give out wrong information. These are 3 pound-feet, so 36 inch-pounds, and there's 20, 25, 30, 35, 36. And again, we don't want to use the torque wrench to do the majority of our work. So we're going to just finger tighten these down. 36 inch-pounds is not very tight at all. It's basically just enough to compress the gaskets together. And there we go. Again, top. Good. Double check. Good. And good. All right. Move on to our valve cover gaskets, valve covers. Layer the gasket in place. I'm not going to use any silicone or anything on these. I don't want these to the silicone to get back down into that crankcase like we saw before and clog that screen up. Okay, so these go back into place. And we have our long shouldered screws, bolts rather. And I'm just going to use those to kind of hold the gasket in place while we lay it in. And this is the best method I've found thus far to use it, but I'm sure somebody will come up with something. Just tighten those up by hand a little bit. Just give them a little snug. These are 5.5 foot-pounds. So that's going to be 66 inch-pounds. Going to torque them together. So nice and easy. These I'm just going to go around. 1, 2, 3. Tighten the gasket down nice and evenly. If you want, you could do a fancy star pattern or something, but ultimately these pieces are machined very well, so it really is not a need. They have very, very tight tolerances, as indicated by the super thin, almost paper-like gasket. Reminds me of Subaru engines. Their cylinder head gaskets were this same thickness. It's very interesting. On their Boxster engines, like in their Impreza and Outbacks, 2.5 liters. Never seen a company machine cylinder heads so well with such tight tolerances. It's almost like craft paper. All right, here we go. Again, set these down. And torque. It's good. 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 And again, you will know which cover goes on which side, very simply because they can't be switched, but also because this bolt hole here is for the air cleaner assembly. So that has to go on the left side of the engine. Okay, and we'll go ahead and change the throttle body gasket. Just pull the throttle body out. It's a little dirty, we'll clean that up with a blade. Peel the old gasket off. These normally do come off all in one. I'm actually going to pop this map sensor up here out so you guys can see a little better. Will not be replacing the map sensor, but just get it out of our way so you can see. Stuff that down there. Okay, so now we're going to pull this gasket out of the way, and as you can see, some of it did break off, and it has a lot of oil on it. A lot. So a lot of the blow by that was going by this breather element here and going into the intake was starting to leak out, and most likely that condensate had something to do with a lot of the oil that we saw in there the first time around. But this gasket has seen better days, so it is going to go bye-bye. And these are not exactly expensive parts, so whenever you open these things up, it's a good idea to change them. Just going to clean that down a little bit, take a good look in there. I got to get a nice clean fresh razor blade and get in there and try to get that corner of that old gasket out. I don't want that impeding me when I'm trying to put the new gasket in. And there we go. Still a little bit of stuff in there. I'll just clean that out. Alright, that's good. Throttle body. Let's clean that up. Drop my razor blade. It's never good. Throttle plate is nice and clear. Which is good. I'm gonna clean the front up too, because it gets another gasket on the front that we're actually not going to install now. Well, I could install now. I could put a cover on. I don't want anything getting into the throttle body. Take this in there, clean that up. Got a little spritz on here. That all up. Now we're ready for our new gasket. Back gasket goes on. Make sure it's as even as possible. We don't want to tear a corner, have a leak. This one's nice and dry. In there. Throttle body. And these give you a little bit of a pain when going back in because there's harnesses in the way and stuff, but should ultimately slide in. Of course, it's going to make a liar out of me. There we go. And just make sure you don't pinch any of the harnesses behind it. The harness for this intake sensor goes up and around the side of it, not behind it. Because if you see, I don't know if you can see in there that well, but it would get pinched. Now the mass air can go back in, but I'm going to pull this connector apart and push this connector up and through this hole. So this line and then down and in. There we go. We're good. The other gasket, this silicone rubber end goes facing the throttle body. As you can see here, top and front. Lay that guy in there. And we'll put a cover on there to hold it in place. All right, but for now I'm just going to pull this off so I don't lose it. Same thing with our breather tube. Our breather tube will go right up here, so it's nice and new. It doesn't crack like the old one. That was also a source of oil leakage. The oil vapor is able to come out and it condenses on all the parts, and just like water vapor, it starts to leak. So there we go. I'm going to drop our 2 spark plugs in place. I've already gone ahead and gapped them, so we don't have to worry about that. We're just going to go ahead and put them in. You can find that spark plug gap in the manual. I'll also link it up in the video somewhere. Get these started. These are a little rough, so I will put the ratchet on them early, just so I have a little something to turn with. It's pretty tight in there. But I'll only use hand until I feel it bottom out. Which it just did. And then give it a slight turn. Oh, the ratchet fell off there. There we go. Another quarter. Ah. Okay. Next side. I'm going to start this one. I have a little more room. I'm going to start it by hand. Okay. In there. Alright, bottomed out. That's tight. Right. Now, before we had some issues with these holes. Put the spark plug wires on both sides. This is what I'm remembering to do so. We had a problem down in here with that bolt hole and this bolt hole and that bolt hole. So my solution to that problem is going to be to repair those holes. And this is a 1/4 28 tap. That's what I normally use for this. It's already on a ratchet handle, which makes it nice and convenient for doing this kind of job. Simply throw the ratchet in there and you're good to go. If it doesn't fall off and completely make you look like a dope. But we're just going to get this started nice and straight. And some silicone, friction modifier. Just letting the tap do the work. It really hasn't started to cut yet. All right, it started to cut, so now I'm going to start using this more as a tap. I'm going to go in come out, cut in, come out, cut in, cut out, cut in, cut out. And now that it's started, I'm actually going to use this portion here and just a adjustable wrench. Just make it a little easier to work it in and cut new threads. You want to just make sure that you're cutting slowly and straight and not forcing the tap. That's how you break a tap. That's how you chew up threads. And instead of cutting them, you just mash the aluminum, especially something as fragile as this poor cast aluminum. Simply running the bolt in and out a few times is enough to damage threads on these. So I'll take you through one, and then I'll just cut and go through the rest. All right, bottomed out here. Yep, bottomed out. Pull this bad boy out. You can see all the damage that this is done. Shoot it again. Blast all that metal fragments out of there and sop them up. Right. Now just to show you, with an 11, with a, sorry, 1/4 inch 28 screw. This back one pulled right out before. It's tight now. That'll hold that cover nicely. So I'll go ahead and do the next two, and we'll be back in a second. Got the holes all cleaned up and re-threaded now. So we are a go to put this portion of the generator back together. Now traditionally, if this generator were to be going into the vehicle, I would leave this section open because you need the area for the vehicle wires to come up through here to connect to the grounds and to the other side of the circuit breakers for the feed. So I leave this all open traditionally, but we could put it together now because we don't want to lose any of the parts. This generator is a rebuild for stock that is going to go on the bench and wait for the next vehicle. So we can put our PCM, not really PCM, more of an engine control module and a powertrain control module. We could place that in place and grab a new 1/4 inch 28 bolt and a washer or two. I'm going to start with one. These bolts are a little bit longer than the others. Make sure that goes in place. And already it just feels nice and snug going in. But I'm going to hand tighten these with a ratchet just because I don't want to put too much strain on them. I'm talking really low, I know, I'm sorry. I don't want to put too much strain on these bolts right now, so I'm going to use old-fashioned methods just to snug them up so that we don't run into any issues where I have to now re-tap these at a larger thread size than I already had to. Yep, and that tightens up nice. It's snug. So I'm going to stick with the one washer for the side over here. Oh, look at that. Messing up already. Caught the wire. We have enough to pull it through. And we can. Okay, while I'm in here, go ahead and get the audible click on that connector. Place the next bolt and washer and run that down. Now if you remember, these are the 3 bolt holes that were, oh, that one didn't catch. These are the 3 bolt holes that were just completely stripped out. And I made a boo-boo. I tightened this one too much. I should have loosened it back up after I made sure that it was snug. So these are the 3 bolt holes that were just destroyed when I took this genset apart. And it is very, very common with these gensets for that to happen. Fortunately, like I've said 100 times before in this one video, the aluminum that they use to make this is not cast very well, and the threads are not reinforced. They would have done better to reinforce these threads with a steel insert of some sort, which we could also do, but just running these down with 1/4 inch is a less time consuming fix, and as long as everybody who moves forward doesn't go ahead and He-Man these things down, these threads should last longer than a unit. So I'm just going to snug these down. There we go. And last but not least, we can leave the harness for the rear controls. That's this one here. This goes to the other controls in the vehicle for the genset. And then this is the fuel pump control. We're going to leave those 2 out because they get run. And these we're just going to stuff inside. Now this hole was still good, so we're just going to use stock 10mm. This hole was good, so we're just going to use our stock 10mm bolt in here. Sorry again, I was drifting and talking really low. I don't know what's going on with that. Ah, did this one fool me? This one fooled me. This one was bad too. Alright, so we're going to enlarge that hole as well. So, again, we grab our trusty tap. As you can see, it's gotten some use. Get all this stuff off there. Some lube. Don't want things dry. It's the last thing you want. Start that as best you can, as straight as you can. started now, so I'll start to use this guy just to work it in. You want to do it slowly, back and forth, take a little bit more each time. You don't want to cut too fast. We'll tear the threads right out of this new aluminum that we're cutting. So we're just going to keep a nice steady pace, back, forth, back, a little further, back, forth, back, a little further. And before you know it, we'll be all the way through the tapping process. And I can feel it getting there. Yep, there we go. We're at bottom. Yep, at bottom. So, second, blow out. Look at all that metal. You want to make sure you get all that out of there. Last thing we want is that in there messing up the good threads. Right, good. Just roll back together. Quarter 28. I use a washer and lock nut for these just because I don't want this front panel with only one screw popping off while this generator is in use, especially since it has live wires from the stator with voltage on them. That could be bad. Oh. What could also be bad is not properly starting your bolt. That's probably what caused it to strip out in the first place. There we go. There we are. Now this genset is ready to roll. Unfortunately, this one is not going into a vehicle. This is on the going to be put on the side for the next time we have to do a swap. We'll simply swap it out, add a couple extra pieces like a new gas filter, the cover for the air filter, a new air filter, a new exhaust gasket over here between the exhaust manifold and the exhaust pipe rather, and the muffler. And that'll do it.